Good morning, everyone. Today is Tuesday, August 24th, 2021. Time is 10:02 a.m. Special meeting agenda with our Airport and Airport Advisory Board for updates. Attending Commissioners Duncan, Brooks, and Filios. Do we have any changes to the agenda? Hearing none. First item, Stephen, were you going to make changes to the agenda? I should have paused.
Do you want to, I don't know if you want to move 3 to 1 and everything back down, or what do you want to do?
Yeah, let's move 3 to 1, and then we'll work down from there. Okay, so we'll move item 3 to the first position. Also joining us is our Director of the Advisory Board, Chairman of the Advisory Board, Greg G. Feller. So we'll take item 3, which is the Airport Authority, looking for direction, potential action item. I think it's more discussion, but if you're looking for direction, go right ahead.
So it's something that, to be honest, it's been discussed off and on since I've been here, and I have a feeling it's been talked about even before I got here. Is a joint powers agreement or an airport authority, and there's a couple different ways that Idaho allows for joint, either an authority. The first is there is one through statute, but to be blunt, I don't know how you actually do it. It's Title 21, Chapter 8 of Regional Airport Authorities. I have a copy if you'd like to see it. But in my opinion, it is meant for creation of a new airport, or it's a creation of an entity for all of the northern 5 counties and their airports. Because you have to get electorates from all 5 counties, and all 5 counties vote on it. So it's a very unique, at best, description. I've never seen a state law like that.
Okay, go ahead.
Quite a few of them. The other option is a joint powers agreement. This is already in place in Lewiston. It's already in place in Haley. So Friedman Memorial Airport has this. Between those two are just between a city and a county. This would be the way this draft is written, is it includes the 4 major cities that is surrounding us, because the major goal of this agreement would be three main reasons. The first is the protection of the airport. When I say protection, I mean airspace. Because right now, no city actually has any reason, any justification to do any protection for the airport. They have no need to do any zoning requirements, nothing.
No limits on what they can do.
They have no limits. Whereas the county does have zoning in place to put height restrictions, to put zoning requirements. Cities don't have that requirement because they don't own the airport. And it's continually an issue for us because the FAA has continually asked me, what do you do for non-conforming use in your approaches? It's in the city we go, we can't do much. Or we work with the city as much as we can.
Okay.
The second is continuity. We plan, when you look at our projects, our average length of any of our projects is 5 to 10 years. Some are 20 years. When we have commissioner change, on our average, it's 2 every 2 years. It's very difficult to have a continuity of plan in place when we are constantly changing and rotating commissioners and having issues with that. The last one is the political, and I'm not saying political as you, it's the politics that follow those 3 seats. And it's once you look at pulling that away, we can run the business of running an airport. And that's the goal of creating an authority, is they are specifically and tied to that bandwidth of just running that airport. Because that ties back to you guys as the 3. We have some major projects coming into the next couple of years. We've got a runway decoupling. We're talking about moving into a tower. We're talking about next phase of development for hangar development. We are continually getting phone calls about commercial service. Those are 4 pretty major projects that are all going to be taking place that are all many years of talking and many years of decision-making and funding sources. And it's, how do you plan for that when you're having continuity issues and bandwidth of you having to run a county, 17 departments, if you have an airport joint powers agreement, that board is fully responsible.
Question. You mentioned Haley and Lewiston. Mm-hmm. What is Boise? Is that an authority?
That's a city. So it's a little bit different.
It's a city of Boise.
It's a city of Boise. Typically where you see most of them, you create an authority, is the county has owned them, and then they've created an authority behind it.
Okay, so when you say the city, do they have who actually governs the airport? Is it the mayor and the city council? Okay. So in that regard, it's almost no different than what we do here, except we're doing it at the county level, they're doing it at the city level.
But I would also say that cities typically have more freedom than counties do.
In what sense?
And when you follow state statute, they have more abilities and freedoms than counties typically do.
Okay. Spokane?
Spokane is actually a joint powers between the city of Spokane and Spokane County.
Okay.
It's an authority.
It's an authority,
If
okay.
you look throughout most states, authorities are extremely prevalent. Montana has quite a few of them. North Dakota, Utah, Oregon, quite a few of them have them. It's not an unusual thing.
What other joint powers authorities do we have in Kootenai County?
So Kootenai County has two others on right now. You have the ambulance service,
EMS?
EMS, and also HARBS.
HARBS?
Yep.
And what's the downside to having a joint powers authority?
So the downside is this takes away from your control. This is now the board. This is a completely separate entity. It is now the way it's set up is you appoint one person, all the other cities appoint one person. That is the board. They're in charge of running and operating that airport, the airport. So you as the county would lose authority over it. Depending on how you look at it, because it's not, depending on who is appointed to it, it may or may not be an elected official. That's why in the packet I included, there's a highlighted section that says, and that's from the Lewiston one, is that it's not an elected official or somebody from this that's an employee. Whether that stays or not, that's a conversation piece.
Right. But if you look at HARBS today,
It's all elected officials.
it's all elected, and if you look at EMS, it's all elected.
Yep.
So Woody represents Post Falls, I represent the county, and the other three are fire districts, and they're elected commissioners. So you can have a JPB with all elected officials as opposed to appointees.
And that's why I highlighted that section, because
Okay.
I knew there's already previous examples in the county that already had it.
Okay. Leslie, do you have any questions?
Not at this point.
So what are your thoughts from here? What are you looking for?
My thoughts is if there's interest in the board, I'm not asking for approval of the document. It says, what's the path forward? Does the board have any interest in starting conversations with our communities around us to see if there's any interest in having partners in this? If there's not, it just dies. If there is, we continue that negotiation with them. And at any point, then both parties can walk away. Any of the parties can walk away. It's just having the conversation, because there needs to be some board direction, in my opinion, from this, of is it any interest in out there? Because this is a change in how we're doing this. But it's something, like I said, it's been talked about repeatedly.
Okay, so if we provide direction to say, yeah, let's investigate, obviously there's no harm done, would you be contacting the mayors, for example?
I would either be contacting the mayors or relying you as, I think the board chair would be the most fitting to be involved.
No,
with
it's
those
probably going to be our
meetings.
liaison.
Liaison or the board.
But
Okay.
it's not agreeing to anything. It's
Not
just
agreeing to
No,
anything.
not
it's
at all.
having the conversation.
Having the conversations and seeing if they have any issues with the document as it sits.
So I'm opposed to give forward direction at this point for two main reasons. Number one, we have a lot of irons in the fire right now with building on to Justice Center and ARPA and all kinds of stuff. So I don't think that we can dedicate a sufficient amount of time to review this. And the second of all, I mean, I just got word of this last Thursday. So I would like more time to investigate it myself and find out what all the pros and cons are. So I'm not in favor of going forward at this point. I think that it would spread the board too thin, and I think that we should concentrate on some of the projects that we have going right now that to me, Justice Services is in dire need of focus and not.
So you want to put off any further discussion, say, for a couple of months?
Yeah.
You okay with that?
Yep.
Revisit it sometime in, let's say, toward the end of October?
Yeah,
You okay?
you can do that.
Yeah, that'd be fine. As long as
Stephen?
it's not dead, it's just,
Well, and realistically, Commissioners, this is not something that's going to happen overnight. This
Absolutely.
is going to be,
Right.
at the earliest, I would see this happening in 2023 budget cycle start, or more realistically in 2024. So this is not something that's going to happen quickly. It typically takes between 1 to 2 years to transition from a one entity to creation of a new entity.
I just have one final question, and I don't know if you can answer it. If you look at counties around the U.S., how are most structured? Let me just ask it that broadly.
So if you really look at airports, most are really run by cities. A lot of them
Okay,
are run
all
by
right.
cities around. There's a whole hodgepodge of what it is. And a lot of them are run by cities. If you start looking at Idaho, a lot of them are run by cities. You do have some run by counties, and then you have a couple run by these authorities. So it really varies by what it is. Your biggest ones in the state, you've got basically are all run by cities because they grew up around a city.
Because the city surrounds them.
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so we'll table the discussion for about 60 days. We'll take it up again at the end of October.
Works.
Good.
Okay? Okay, thank you. All right. Let's move back up to item number 1, review of August 21 Advisory Board Minutes discussion.
So it was just a mention of a snow meeting that we're going to have here in about 2 weeks. We are changing some snow procedures we'll talk about then. We also talked about our new system that we're implementing called Aero Simple. It's our large tracking system for our 139 stuff. But however, one of the big changes that we're doing with this is it also allows for a tenant portal. So one of the big pushes is that instead of us having to go have conversations with people to upload insurance and do different things, or if they need to request leases, they can actually go through this tenant portal, download it from there, and do it much simpler instead of us emailing it to them and ensuring it. That way they always have their documentation there. It also has a much simpler, for example, for us, if we have an issue with the hangar, my staff now can just look at a map, click on it, and find out who it is, contact information, everything in that situation. So it's it was that software that we've gotten, and it was adding a lot of value to what we do, and they're continuing to improve it and develop it. The hardest part for us is actually getting all of the information into the system.
Okay, just for the benefit of anybody listening in, when you use the term 139, it's an FAA term. Go ahead.
So 139 is our inspection process. It's how we have to maintain the airport to specific standards.
Okay. Any questions for Stephen?
If you'd like a more in-depth example, I can show you it as commissioners a separate time.
Yeah, that's okay. We don't need to take, yeah. We can-
Temporary tower,
ahead.
we are averaging about 370 to 400 operations a day with a high number of 590.
Jeez.
I have a question about that. Who determines that? I mean, who
That is
tracks it?
That is FAA controllers counting it.
Okay.
So that is
That's-
not our
that's-
numbers. That is their controllers theirs, and that's what get emailed to me.
So you're not sitting there.
We're not counting that. I have other things I need to do in the day. But it's been very busy. They anticipate the temporary tower staying until October. That may change now that it's cooled off and we've gotten some rain, but we're still seeing extreme activity out at the airport.
590.
590
So a
operations.
takeoff and a landing is 2 operations.
Yes.
Is that risky?
There is a significant opportunity for an incident at that operation.
But that's the same thing. If you have 75 cars on 1 mile of freeway versus 2 cars on 1 mile of freeway, I mean, it's just volume is volume.
Yep. We also have a system that lets us see IFR arrivals and departures. Throughout the month of July, we averaged about 160 arrivals and departures.
Wow.
That is per day.
IFR.
IFR, so
IFR.
instrument flight rules. So
instrument,
they
right,
were the
okay.
typically are large jets, and that is a very large number of aircraft to see in this airport. It's in fact 100% increase from the year before.
Wow.
Wow. Okay. What was that number again? Did you say 150?
160.
160
Oh,
is what
160.
the average. The high was 178.
Wow.
Okay. Any questions for, do you still have more, Stephen?
Just, the ongoing projects, you have the list of it if you have any questions. We did the fair update, was just the volunteers for it. The association, Greg, do you want to say kind of what that was?
Sure. Yeah, the Coeur d'Alene Airport Association, there was some talk of possibly dissolving, but the board talked to a member of the association at our advisory board meeting.
Yeah.
And basically told him that we would appreciate it if the association would stay involved and become active again. And looking at Facebook, I see there's a meeting today at 5 o'clock to appoint new officers. So the board really hopes to continue that in order to maintain some communication with them.
Okay. Questions? Stephen?
Nope. That was it for the board update.
Okay, so that's it for item number 1, which is the review of the August 21 Advisory Board minutes. Final item, number 2, airport lease document. Go ahead, Stephen.
So really, we've had somebody come to us they wanted to make some modifications, and for the most part, they're pretty minor, just some wording modifications.
Okay.
We've always had some insurance questions and issues because the insurance is basically a copy of the previous insurance, mostly because we couldn't get our legal staff to agree to what they wanted to see, and we couldn't get anything from our insurance provider to tell us what was deemed acceptable. We couldn't get them to agree. We actually spoke to somebody that is an insurance provider who has provided recommendations and guidance to IDL. So this is what his recommendations are in the insurance section, which I would actually recommend we make that modification for the insurance section specifically.
What section is that?
It is 24. There's quite a bit of it. It deletes a lot of things and changes a bunch. And then the comment is a lot of it was you duplicated a lot of things, and then you also, some of the things the insurance providers couldn't provide. And that was something we kept hearing repeatedly.
Okay.
But we could never, like I said, we could never get clarification about what was going to be deemed acceptable. I think, Chris, you remember we had a long discussion about that a couple years ago.
Right.
And so I think we finally have squared that insurance issue away. There are really only 3 sections that I have concerns about is 7, 25, and paragraph T on page 22. And that's where I want legal to provide me guidance, because I think it shifts some of the liability around.
Right.
And I've requested that from legal, but he felt it should be a board decision, not his request.
So I would not be in favor of 25 and section T, and then I need you to explain section 7 to me.
So section 7 is how we do we do rate increases.
Right.
To me, it's one of those items, it's kind of a business decision on how we do it. I actually prefer to kind of leave it in there. I'm fine with pulling it out too. It's just deleting of the improvements in infrastructure because it allows us more flexibility and freedom into it.
Okay.
If you don't include the infrastructure.
If we do include infrastructure.
Oh, so then we want to leave it in there. Yeah. So I guess without a major reason to change it, then I would be in favor of keeping section 7 the same as well.
Okay. And that was my interpretation. I wanted our legal staff
I think that's a good idea.
to provide me that clarification, and they felt it needed to be from you.
Okay.
Okay, fair
well,
enough.
Yeah, do we got at least 2? No changes for those 3 sections?
I want legal to review the entire
And they have.
They
document
have?
before we
They
start.
have.
They've been provided it, and the response was the board needs to decide.
Okay.
Yep.
And it was, as I look at it, most of these are fairly minor. It's changing a couple things, and the insurance thing to me is the biggest change throughout the document. But as I said, we've always had insurance issues, and
Right.
Chris, you know this.
Yeah, that's true.
We weren't approving leases for a while because we couldn't get.
That was right when we started, I
It
think.
was either right when you started or right before you started.
Before.
We couldn't get couldn't get agreement on what insurance was acceptable,
Okay,
so.
I'm fine.
Yep.
We need a formal vote?
We could.
I would recommend a
Did you want a formal vote?
just so we're clear.
And then these, but you'll bring us the, this one is this particular entity that we're doing. However, you'll
Yes.
bring us forward a standard lease to approve maybe later at a business meeting or something?
Yeah, it'll probably be it'll be a standardized business meeting. We'll do it right before we do this one.
Oh, okay.
So it'll be two items. It'll be this one as a standardized, this is the new standard lease,
Right,
and then that is their new lease.
Gotcha.
got it. Okay,
Okay.
fine. So it's two individual items.
Sure.
Okay.
So I move that we approve the lease changes as presented with the exception of sections 7, 25, and T on page 22, which shall remain the same.
Sounds good.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks.
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan.
Aye.
Chairman Philios.
Aye, and the motion is carried regarding the airport lease. Okay, so we still have time. Public comment. Anybody wish to come forward?
The gadflies return. My comments today are
Yeah, go right ahead. It's okay.
a measured response. It won't be today. It won't be very happy. We start with wow, is all I can say about this one. 10 pages, obviously, a lot of time. The BOCC is here to run business in the county for the benefit of the taxpayers. There's no benefit financially. All it's going to do is contribute to run this expenditure. I suspect that there is another reason. I'll get into that. In any case, the county with this joint power is going to be assumed control of a valuable asset. The benefit to the cities is non-existent. The reasons for cost, liabilities, bargaining rights. Joint powers make sense when all parties have something to gain and meets a need. PARP, which you pointed out, is a prime example where joint powers is a good program. Every time I see a governing body for an airport that is set up by government, it has been because there are multiple airports involved and there's commonality. We don't have that case here. I will surmise that the reason for this proposal is to get the BOCC out of need of managing the AD. He is incompetent, dishonest, and abusive. Mr. Brooks does not have the capacity or the will to bring him to task. So instead of doing his job, we now propose to delegate it off. I've said it before, the AD is writing checks that we taxpayers can ill afford to cash. Mr. Brooks berated the sheriff over his proposed budget, but never batted an eye when the numbers presented at the advisory board meeting showed that the new snow palace is going to cost $9 million and the FAA is going to pay a shade over $4 million. Yet between the AD and Mr. Brooks, this project continues forward, even though you have a slew of options that have been given to you. One of the excuses, by the way, for the need to replace the old office is it violates FAR Part 72. I don't know if any of you have ever read 72. It's hazardous to navigation. It's just dishonest from the very beginning. I know from experience that the BOCC does not want the input of airport users. Mr. Phillips even cited this in a press article with Ms. Hardy. The current lawsuit, so backing up, so now what we're doing is going to the courts to communicate with you. We currently have the lawsuit on the access control. Mr. Walsh and I came in and met in an executive session with you. That was about 2 years ago. Absolutely nothing has ever happened. We're now proceeding with the lawsuit. You had a chance to do something to solve the problem, and it didn't happen. You'll certainly be receiving a lawsuit over the sewer fees. You pre-selected the resolution that you wanted to vote on. You did me a favor, by the way, on this. Mr. Ferris was offended when I cited the elements of fraud. They still stand. Your AD met every criteria. It also appears that you will be the first government entity to ever be sued under the consumer protection statutes. Both these issues open up the BOCC to penalties, cost awards and punitives. We notified the BOCC and the advisory board that the approval resolution violated state law. It made no difference to you. Council has been retained and funds raised to file a suit over the Snow Palace. This will occur whenever you approve further funding on it. Should the joint powers go forward, there's a clause in there that will violate the U.S. Fifth Amendment. You have been notified of this previously. Takings are considered serious issues by the courts. Obviously, that will bring another action. Several of us appeared before you, Jim Walsh again, concerning airport operations and concerns about the AD's actions. These included theft and diversion of county assets. Mr. Brooks' statement was, "People tell me these things, but nobody brings me facts. People tell me things, but nobody brings me facts." We brought you facts, names, items, and amounts. The AD is directly involved in this. If nothing else, by condoning the actions of his staff. Mr. Brooks, by failure to investigate and work for recovery, has failed in his job. There are strong feelings to turn this issue over to the state AG for investigation. Brooks, by admission, has aided and abetted. All is certain, I hope that you will kill this proposal from the joint powers and see a way forward to get the airport operating in an economical manner with the primary purpose of supporting the aviation sector instead of the current animosity towards your customers. Thank you.
Thank you. By the way, you didn't give us your name, just for the benefit of everybody listening in. Your name. Anyone else? You've got, I'll limit this to 3 minutes. Leslie needs to.
35.
Yeah,
And I
you've
can
got
always
about-
watch it online
Okay,
too.
go
so-
right ahead.
Morning, guys. My name is Jim Walsh, 1703 Grand Tour, Hayden. Member of the community for 25 years. I had a lot to say this morning to you guys about this resolution, but I'm glad it's being tabled for 2 months. Mr. Hackabee pretty much hit it on the head on a lot of things that I wanted to say. But I do have to bring to your attention, should this go forward, I would like clarification on item 4, Article 4, item 15. The new board has total direction to hire a new airport director. Does that mean the current airport director has to resign his current position and reapply for this when the new board is appointed? I need clarification on that. And also, does the airport advisory committee get dissolved also? If not, that brings it to expansion of government. The 4 new members that you want to form, plus the 9, I believe, airport advisory members, how many people does it take to run an airport? To advise this manager on what to do? In the past 24 of 25 years, it took 1 individual. The commissioners never heard anything from the airport other than budgetary issues. Now all that you guys hear about is lawsuits, letters coming to you with no response. I mean, it's endless. So that's my point. I'm not in favor of this new direction you guys want to go, or the director wants to go. So that's my point, and I guess we'll revisit it in a couple months and see what the voting resolves. So
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Steve Anderson, and I'm not sure that I've reviewed things quite as extensively as Mr. Huckabee has, but a couple of, actually 3 points stand out to me. First of all, I heard the director talk about the justification for this. I didn't understand the justification by looking through the agreement itself, but the fact that you've got cities that surround the airport and you have to deal with those folks when there's issues that affect the airport, that's just normal business to me, and that is not going to end by doing this. The other justification I see is completely counter to anything that happens in a democratic society, and that is that this is a political deal as far as I'm concerned. You cannot take the politics out of operation of a public entity, and by taking it away from you, if we don't like the way your director is operating the airport, we can not elect some of you and change things. With a board that's appointed by the cities and by you, we're completely excluded from the opportunity to apply political pressure against someone that we may not be satisfied with. So I see that as a problem. Another one is that it seems to be completely redundant. If you've got an airport advisory board already that is volunteers, these are people that are come forth and they're volunteering their time, they're interested, they're taking the time to study the issues and to give you recommendations, and for you to act on that after you also review things on your own seems to me to be a pretty appropriate way to make decisions. So the fact that you've got that board seems completely redundant if you're going to relinquish your powers over to the city and to having one representative. Finally, it seems like, and this isn't finally, it seems to me that the entire county benefits from the operation of this airport. And by you as a county commission having only one vote out of 5, and you're the major population of this county is in the outlying areas, that seems to be a ridiculous thing to do, to have one vote in a situation like that. And you're not even really getting one vote because you appoint someone, you don't know what they're going to do or how they're going to vote and how they're going to operate things. The final thing is that it seems that from the outset, this is stacked against the actual stakeholders out at the airport. The hangar owners and the pilots are going to be limited to one person on that board, and they're the ones that are going to be the most affected by things. And also, in the proposed document, it appears to change what has been a standard practice with regard to ground leases, and that is that the ground leases are 25 years with an option to extend for an additional 25 years, and this summarily limits it to 25 years the way it's written right now. So those are the comments that I have. I am completely against this proposal. I'm glad to see that you've tabled it and taken the opportunity to consider things more on your own at this time. So thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. Name, please.
Okay, I'm Elspeth Roach. I live in Spirit Lake now, which is considered Bonner County where I live, but I'm still partly Kootenai County. I'm a user at the airport. I'm a former member of the Coeur d'Alene Airport Association. And I'm sorry I'm late, but I came today because, looking through this, which I just got a copy from some former members of Coeur d'Alene Airport Association. Didn't see it otherwise, but the concerns I have are pretty much expressed here. I'm not a tenant at the airport, but I'm a user. I fly. I take lessons. I keep my airport my private pilot license current by going to some of the FBOs out there and using the CFIs. So I'm very, very much concerned about what this appears to be doing. It certainly is adding another hierarchy to the bureaucracy. I'm sure you can see that. And the taxes, this bureaucracy is appointed, not elected. Yes, they're operating under an elected official, but it seems to me they're just going to become another government employee. And now what? What do I have as recourse when I'm not happy with that government employee? Not much. The only recourse I have is to vote someone out who elected him or appointed him, and now I have to find someone else. But that person can still stay. There's nothing in here that advises the constituents, if you will, as to what we get to do with this individual, as Mr. Anderson pointed they're an appointed person, they become an employee, they're all being compensated with tax dollars, I would assume. The budget is going to be public record. Is it also going to be separate from the general budget? Because, I mean, I've gone through this, I have notes all over the place. So, again, I'm very glad that you have tabled it, glad to hear that. And hopefully you'd be more interested in advising getting some advice from some of the folks who actually use the airport. That's all I can ask.
Thank you.
sir.
Anyone else? Okay, so our time now is, I've got 10:38, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.